Quiet on the set. Camera. Rolling. And action. You know, there's nothing like that word in the world. There's nothing like hearing the sound of the clapboard. Because when you hear the sound of the clapboard, you are seeing a director's vision and what he's communicated to his crew and his cast be captured on film. It's a beautiful sound. It's kind of like eating a piece of decadent chocolate. It's exciting. The world of show business. What I'm going to do today is take you on a little journey, a comparison of two worlds, corporate America and the movie business. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to learn a little bit about both of these industries. And I'm going to do it this way because I've lived in both of these industries. I've done both. Can I start over? I'm off. I know, but I started off bad. I just don't feel it. I just didn't get it right. Okay, just a second, because this is kind of new material, so I'm trying to remember everything. Okay. I know. Yeah, I know. Let me do it real quick. It's just, the sequence is just real life. Okay, real life journey. Okay. Okay. Quiet on the set. Camera. Rolling. And action. There is nothing like the sound of a clapboard. When that clapboard goes down, a director's vision is coming to life. You see, he has a vision of how a movie is going to be. And the words that the way he's communicated to his crew and to his cast is what brings the movie alive. And now it's being captured on film. So that sound, to me, is like having a piece of decadent chocolate. Now, I'm not here to just talk about the movie business. I'm going to take you in two different worlds. The world of corporate America and the movie business. We're going to do a little comparison here. And I'm going to take you on a real life journey. You see, I've lived in both of these worlds. I spent 7 years in a penitentiary. Oh, I'm sorry, that's an insurance company. And actually, 4 years after I started in this insurance company, it wasn't so bad working there, but corporate America bought this little company out. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Then I worked 3.5 years on a television show, and it was exciting. I worked as a location manager for the second unit. Now, for those of you who don't know what the second unit is, that is the fun unit. That's where you have the car speeding down speeding down the street, crashing, boom, explosions going off, people jumping out of windows, people set on fire, gunfights, fistfights. It's exciting and it's fun. That's the second unit. And the reason I've chosen the second unit is because I'm convinced that the second unit is at the height of where communication should be. You see, you're working with stunt people, and someone's life is always at stake. Imagine what it would be like in corporate America if someone's life was at stake. But let's look at how these people, the managers that I worked with, or we'll call them bosses that I worked with, and how they viewed the world. The world through the lens of communication. Now, I've changed the names of the people to protect the uninnocent. And in this world, in corporate America, when they took over, they sent in a VP by the name of Anne. Or, I should say, she was better known as Cruella de Vil. You all have had somebody like that in your life, right? A Cruella de Vil? Well, she saw the world in a monochrome vision. Everything was black and white to her. The people that worked there were not people. They were just images of people. They were like robots. You ever see those images, the silhouettes of the little black person with no hands and no feet? That's how Cruella saw the world. That's how she saw the people that worked for her. It was only about numbers. How many pieces of paper are going across your desk? How many policies have been written? How many claims are being closed under cost? She didn't care about the people that worked for her. She had a circle full of robots. Now, over on this side, we have Eric. That's Prince Charming. I have to tell you, he was bar none the greatest leader I've ever worked with. And with is certainly a magic word. Because true leaders understand that you work with people, that they don't work for you. Something Cruella needed to learn. And Eric, in his circle, were humans. You see, everybody was different. He saw the world in rainbow colors. Every color was different. Everybody had something to bring to the table. That was the way Eric saw the world. He appreciated his people. You were a human being with Eric. Now, our second circle is called humor. And Cruella's circle, you could look through it. It was empty. There was no humor in Cruella's world. She was one of those people, and I'm sure many of you can relate to this, is that moment where you've been working hard for a couple hours straight and just concentrating on your work, and all of a sudden you just need a little bit of a mental break. So you crack a joke to your coworker. And your coworker and you are laughing, and who walks by? Cruella, right? And then she gets upset because she thinks you're not working. So she reports it to the supervisor. Says the next time you're writing him up. And you're going, you can't even have a little bit of fun in here. Cruella was the kind of person that you would see walking down the hall and you'd say good morning and she'd go, not even look at you. You were lucky if you got a sound out of her. Who wants to work in a world like that? Her humor circle was empty. Now, Eric on the other side, Prince Charming, his circle was filled with humor. You have to think about the fact that in the film business, we're working 14 to 16 hours a day, as opposed to 8. And that 14, 16 hours is filled with a lot of excitement and sometimes sitting around waiting for things. But Eric knew how to bring humor into the world because anything with the stunt unit was always serious business. But Eric found humor in everything. For instance, I remember one day when we were scouting locations, and we got permission to go into those big viaducts in downtown Dallas, and it's kind of like a big gully where the water overflow can come. But we had a really dry season, and so we were thinking about using that for a car chase. So we're all standing up there in the viaduct looking down, and Eric's kind of trying to visualize this car chase going in this gully. And all of a sudden he says, Nikki, come on, get in your car. And I get in my car, and he hops in the passenger side, and he goes, drive to the bottom. And I'm going, what? Are you kidding? It's so steep. Are we gonna roll over or anything? He goes, no, take your foot off the brake. And we drove down, and he kept saying, you can take your foot off the brake a little more. And we finally got to the bottom. I was shaking because you know that it's like being in a haunted house with someone. You trust them, but yet you're ready to like scream inside because you don't know what's going to happen. But I knew that I could trust Eric. And when we got to the bottom of the hill, he scanned, surveyed the land, and the other stunt guys had driven down. And I said, don't you even think about getting in their car, because you got to help me get back up the hill. So Eric always found humor in everything. Now, the interesting thing about Eric's circles is that they intersected. You see, he treated humans like human beings and had a sense of humor, which creates great relationships with people. That's what's in the center of this, relationships. So now Cruella, she didn't know how to build any relationships. And our last circle here is supposed to be called health. Imagine what the workers felt like here. Do you think that they had a healthy attitude? Cruella's circle was unhealthy. I saw women who worked in the department before. They may have been a little chubby, but they started getting very unhealthy. Not only in their attitudes, their physicalness, but everything became unhealthy. It became a very toxic environment. And what happened was people started arguing with each other because they knew they needed to get the work done. If something went wrong, they would blame another person. Oh, it's their fault. No, it's that department's fault. It's their fault. It was such an unhealthy environment, and that's why I left. But in Eric's world, we had a very healthy environment. And you have to think about it first. If you're working with stuntmen and stuntwomen, they got to be healthy. That's one, physically, but mentally, everybody was healthy. Everybody loved working with Eric. So Eric's circles all intersected. He had the humans, the humor, the relationships. And then when you come down to the health circle, it intersected with the other two circles. And here you have engagement between the humor and the health. And then the health and the humans brings you back to being productive. That's what happens when you have a great leader. Everybody works together, and it just cycles so nicely, and everybody trusts everyone. The three things that really made Eric a great leader are basically the 3 C's. We see them all over the place. Connect, communicate, collaborate. First, you have to connect with people. Eric was great at that. There was no connection with Cruella. Eric knew immediately, the first time I met him, he was one of the nicest people you could ever want to meet on a set. He had a big smile on his face. He introduced himself. We sat and chatted for a while because he wanted to find out about you. He took time to find out about who you were as a person. That's what was beautiful about Eric. And when you have that initial connection like that, it starts with a little trust. There was no trust with Cruella right from the beginning. The first connection was broken. But with Eric, he started with trust. And that's what you build on. And the only way you can get to the next step, because it is trust or bust, the only way you can get to communication is to continue that trust. And Eric built a trust between every single person in the crew. And imagine what it's like working with stuntmen. Because again, I'm going to remind you, someone's life is at stake, and they have to totally trust each other. We all had to trust each other. And that communication with Eric not only was filled with trust, but we all understood each other's needs. We were human beings. It's trust or rust. Because you can start out with a little trust with someone, but if you don't continue that trust in the communication, it's trust or rust. And then last is collaboration. When you watch stuntmen work together, it is the most incredible experience in the world. They all have each other's backs. We all collaborated. Every single department was working hard to make everything work magically and to make sure no one was going to get hurt. You see, Eric knew how to do that with everyone because collaboration is trust is a must. You have to have that when you're working with stuntmen. And I want to just share with you something that happened one time. It was probably the scariest time on the set. But it really speaks for when people work together. One of our stuntmen was jumping out of a third-story building. He was jumping out of a third-story building. Now, usually what they would do is they would use boxes, empty boxes. You just fold them up. You don't put tape on them. You just fold them up and you set them on top of each other and they fall into it. That's usually from a 2-story building. But this time, he was jumping from 3 stories, and it was an old abandoned building. And so what they did was they got a big, let's face it this way, so they got a big airbag. It must have been it looked like it was a football field long and probably like 50 feet wide. And what was happening was the good guy, the stuntman was playing, of course, the main character, the good guy. He was the double. And he was going to jump out the window. There was no actual window in it because it was an abandoned building. Jump out the window and a huge explosion happens behind him. And fire and flames come out. Everything has to be timed perfectly. Everybody has to trust what everybody else is doing. So here comes our stuntman. We'll call him Ken. Ken starts the run. He gets to the ledge of the window. He jumps out into the airbag. But the unforeseen thing was when the explosion happened, the wood frame of the window caught on fire and fell out, hit the airbag, and boom, up in flames. And Ken is in the middle of it. I'll tell you, that put just the chill in everyone. But what was amazing was to watch how all the team members worked. Every single stuntman, I don't think you could even count 2 seconds, was there with a fire extinguisher surrounding the whole thing. And they were putting out the fire. And we didn't know what happened to Ken. And then all of a sudden, it was kind of like the phoenix rising out of the ashes. Ken stood up. And even today, it kind of makes me a little emotional because we were so happy to see him stand up. And all that happened to him was the back of his hair got singed. He had a little bit of burn on his face. His hair arms were singed, but he was okay. But it was the fact that all his brothers and all of us were in that bag with him at that moment because we truly cared and trusted each other to help each other out in this situation.